Welcome back to our ninth #HireMe 2022 guest panel speaker series hosted by bcjobs.ca. My name is Chelsea and I'll be your BC Jobs host for today. So for those of you who are new to these panels, we usually have 3 special guest speakers from various sectors join us for a little Q&A on what's new with their organizations and to talk a bit about the job market and hiring in British Columbia. So we are very proud that BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board. And to stay in the loop about companies that are hiring, you can also check out our Innovators podcast to learn more about what industry leaders are saying about the job market. So before we get started here today, I want to encourage the audience here to type any questions you have for our panelists into the chat, and we'll get to your questions during our audience Q&A, so a little bit later on. Today, we will be offering a candidate pitch event right before we start the audience Q&A. So 3 candidates will be selected for a 30-second pitch to tell our guest speakers about yourself and about your work experience or student experience. And the person with the best pitch will receive a 30-minute resume consultation with BC Jobs. So when we get to this point of the panel today, I'll provide some instructions on how to nominate yourself to give a short pitch. Okay, I've got a couple more people coming in here. Welcome, John. All right, so let's get some panelist introductions going here. I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to David Schultz, technical sourcer for Meta. David, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today, and we'd love to know more about yourself and Meta.
Thanks, Chelsea, and thanks for everyone for showing up today. I appreciate you taking the time to be here and learn a bit more about Meta and Bench and KPMG and what BC Jobs does as well. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a technical sourcer here at Meta. I joined in January, and I am on the remote. I'm a remote worker myself, and recruiting mostly for remote workers. Mostly, I'm on the machine learning team, and also work closely with people on data science since they're related. So I sometimes pass candidates along on that side as well. But I'm looking for machine learning generalists at the E5 level, IC5 level, or IC6 level, and or above. And prior to that, I was working as a RPO recruiter. I was working with a company called Wilson HCD, which specializes in outsource recruiting. And I was working with IBM and Deloitte there. And before that, I was with agencies. So working on all sorts of roles, different tech roles. Everything from machine learning to Java developers, whatnot, like all sorts of different roles. So that's a bit about me and what I'm working on here. Thanks.
Sweet. Well, it's definitely a great introduction, David. Thank you so much. And next up, we've got Nicole Tomasetti, Director of Talent Acquisition at KPMG. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to know more about you and KPMG.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you for having me. And hello to all of you. I do reside in Vancouver, but today I happen to be in Toronto. So yes, getting close to dinner time, that's for sure. So my background with KPMG is I joined KPMG right from campus. I went to Simon Fraser University and got my accounting concentration and got my CPA designation and absolutely loved working in audit. And one of the really neat things while I was working in audit was I started to find out that my passion actually was following more on the HR, the work environment side. And so my career path took a turn, but internally with KPMG, and I moved into a campus recruiting role for Vancouver, then nationally, and then I moved into an HR generalist role. But really the win on the talent attraction side is really what my passion was. So moved back into talent attraction and took roles both in Vancouver, Toronto, and then my current role is I lead the national talent attraction team, both on the campus side, and on the campus side, we're across the country. In all of the provinces, we have 41 offices. So we hire from campus, and then as well our experienced professional hire team. And again, we hire in all of our provinces. And what's been really exciting, I would have to say, this is probably part of COVID, is from in person in this hybrid that we're now in. So you can live in Vancouver and work in Toronto without actually having to fly. So that brings in our whole ESG conversation that we might be having on later during this call. So happy to meet all of you. And at the end of the day, my whole goal is to ensure I'm maximizing the candidate, the recruiter, and the hiring manager experience. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Nicole. And last but not least, we've got Robert Peterson, recruitment team lead at Bench Accounting. Robert, great to have you on the panel today. Please tell us a bit about yourself and Bench Accounting.
Thanks, Chelsea. And nice to meet everyone. My name's Rob. I worked for a technical recruitment agency back in 2018 and really just fell in love with recruitment from then. It was my first job out of BCIT. And I don't know, I just really loved learning about like new tech companies in the city, getting to partner with them, going to their office and like getting to know like their leaders and what they're hiring for and what strategies they're kind of taking on and like how we're supporting them. So and how like each individual role was connected to that overarching like strategy and the goal for the company. So I absolutely love that. And worked there for about 4 years. And then came to Bench or kind of found Bench to kind of live more of like a remote lifestyle. Like I wanted to work from home full time and be able to travel and work for multiple months out of the year. So I've been doing that with Bench. Like I've been in Hawaii now since like the end of April and been on vacation and then working remotely for that time. But at Bench, I'm still in the technical recruitment path. I hire for like all of our engineers, product managers, product designers, data and business analysts, and all those types of roles. So that's me.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about yourself, Robert. And I know we're all jealous that you're in Hawaii and we are not. So hopefully you've been enjoying your time over there. Now that we know our panelists a little bit better, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with before we move over to our pitch event and our audience Q&A. These next questions are geared more towards like what's new with their companies and for 2022, but I've also thrown in a couple questions under the theme of company opportunities. So I'll start off with Robert. So Bench Accounting is a Vancouver-based firm with over 500 staff. And I love your 5 principles. Keep it human, take a stand, be responsible, default open, and get scrappy. Tell us about how these principles shape Bench and your employees.
Yeah, Chelsea. Yeah, I love our values too. I think it's like one of the core reasons why I joined Bench was kind of just being able to resonate with those values and knowing that if I was going to be hiring at Bench, that these are the things I'd be looking for. And it's really aligned across our full company. Like before somebody gets hired at Bench, all the managers and team members they're constantly looking for how people are living these values in our interviews. So it really helps shape like who actually comes into Bench too. They're really like kind of like table stakes to work at Bench. You kind of have to have like value or like ways to relate to these values, right? The kind of core ones that like really speak to me and really like influence my role day to day is the default open value. I'd say you really have power to book meetings with whoever you want at Bench. Like there's really no restrictions whatsoever. If you're, 2 months ago, Bench is a startup, right? And we're like to be close Series C last year, but I was worried about like talks of recessions and all these layoffs in the market and hiring freezes. So I booked a meeting like with our president and CFO JP, and like he literally just walked me through like all the documents that he has about like burn rates, cash positions, how much runway we have as a startup, and like totally alleviated my concerns. And it was just so easy, so open, so transparent. I've just never experienced that with other organizations, right? Just being able to like Slack your CFO and ask for some time. Bench is a pretty big company too. It's not like we're just like a 40-person startup, right? Like he's got a busy schedule, but they made time and it was awesome. So that was one value for sure that we're living like day to day, right? Like anybody can do that. And I take meetings all the time from like junior engineers who are like curious about an interview process and like want like any like helpful tips and tricks, and I try to be as like open and transparent as possible. It's like even when I'm interviewing them to like send them into the next round and like how to succeed, right? Be responsible is a great one too. Like you get so much autonomy and freedom at Bench. Like one thing I noticed right away is that there's a ton of people working different time zones at Bench, right? Like there's people traveling all the time, and there's people like all across Canada. So, you really set your own hours in your calendar. Like you can block off whatever hours you want. So you're never like, the people in Toronto or in like the maritime provinces, for example, aren't having to work super late every day just because the meetings every day at 6 or 7 o'clock. Like you have a lot of freedom and autonomy to like put that into your calendar, and then everyone just kind of works around that. So, and that kind of goes along with the keep it human piece too. Everyone's just super empathetic towards people's time and is very understanding. So yeah, that's kind of how the values really like shape Bench and the day-to-day life here. Like we really are living them.
Love it. Great to hear that, Robert. All right, my next question is for Nicole. KPMG is a huge organization with over 10,000 employees across Canada. Would you recommend KPMG as a great place to start one's career journey and grow within the company?
Well, I've lived it, so yes. So yeah, I do recommend KPMG as a great place to start one's career journey and grow with the firm. And it's important to understand what KPMG is. KPMG has multiple client service business lines. So we have number 1, audit and assurance, 2, tax and law, 3, deal risk and management consulting, and business enablement service function. And that is our HR, IT, marketing, and admin. And that group ensures our client service business lines have the tools, resources to drive business revenue. And that's really important to understand that KPMG is multidisciplinary, and that means multiple streams of revenue. We're going to always see ups and downs in the business, in the economy. And so KPMG becomes like this proof skill set where you can take resources from one business line to another, and then you have this stable workforce as you go forward. And so being multidisciplinary, that means we have career opportunities that span business, service lines, geographies, and countries. So for myself, I started in client service. I then moved into HR. I've worked in multiple geos. And then, of course, over the last 2.5 years, I've been completely remote. My happy space is hybrid. And so now as I move forward, I have the opportunity to be learning in the office or learning from home or even learning in a different geography. And what I think is really cool about KPMG is our business continues to grow. So there's new revenue streams that come in, and that means career opportunity. KPMG is a people business. And so when we grow, that means we have more opportunities for individuals to join. And in addition, we do listenings with our employees because we need to understand what attracts all of you to a company like KPMG, but we also have to understand what's going to retain you, because we want to have individuals join us from campus and try different career opportunities as they progress through their career. And if we retain you, that means we're also helping you future-proof opportunity. So we continue to focus on what makes an employee engaged and build those people and learning programs to support the development. And we've had this award that we've received for 16 years in a row, and that's Canada's top 100 employers. And that's because we really focus on allowing you to be an individual and bring your best unique self to work. And then we're committed to helping you learn for a lifetime. And when we take a step back and looking at, like, is KPMG a great place to start your career? For sure, because it's multiple different areas of where your passion is. Is it an audit? It's not everyone's career path, but maybe IT is. And then what are the different career paths in each one of these streams? And then I always encourage people, like, take your passion, your learning, and then look for those career paths inside the organization. Or, like Robert said, if you see someone that has your dream job, call them up and find out their career path on how they got there. Because asking questions, being creative, learning, like that's the fun of working. And so you just really need to find your place and where you can have fun, be creative, and, of course, have employment income at the same time. So you want to be at a place where you're having fun.
Love it. Very cool. I'm very cool about the award there, Nicole. All right. My next question is for David. So, of course, Meta is a household name these days with a global workforce of over 100,000 employees. Tell us a bit about some initiatives that that Meta offers in the workforce. I noticed that Meta is supporting an upcoming summit on disabilities and neurodivergence to promote a more inclusive workspace. So I'd love to hear some more about that.
Yeah, that's right. Great question. And just really quickly, I think I forgot to mention my intro that I'm based in Montreal and I recruit across Canada and the US.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, if you know anybody in the US also, hit me up on LinkedIn. Let's chat.
Good to know.
So the summit is it's called Destigmatized, and it's visible and invisible disabilities and neurodivergence. And that reflects that, a lot of disabilities are invisible. So one initiative that we're taking is encouraging our employees to self-identify if they have disabilities, simply to raise awareness and to know that there's more people out there. That, when you're aware that there's people out there like you, then it makes you more empowered. It makes you feel like you're not alone. You can speak, your voice is heard, and there's strength in numbers, right? So we encourage people to identify for all sorts of underrepresented groups. And we have these events regularly where we want to talk to people who might be interested in joining us. We'll have events like Black Engineers at Meta or Women in Leadership at Meta. Next Wednesday, we have Who is Meta, which is geared towards Natives, Indigenous people. So we have events like that, Latinas at Meta, all sorts of different groups for underrepresented people. And one of our biggest initiatives was in 2019, where we set a goal called 50 and 5. And that was a goal to double some of these groups within the next 5 years. We wanted to double the amount of Black employees that we had in the US. We wanted to double the number of Hispanic employees that we had in the US. We wanted to double the amount of women working for us globally. And we wanted to do all this within 5 years. So by 2024, and we just released last month our 9th annual diversity report, and we found that we've hit all these goals already for those days. Yeah. And what we realized is why we hit these goals is because we switched to remote work. Back in March 2021, we committed fully to remote work, and not just a temporary thing for the during the pandemic, but a permanent thing where people could work however they're most comfortable. And that means that also if people choose to work, hybrid, they can do that too. So now 75% of our teams have that freedom. 75% of our teams now are working across different locations. So if people want to work in the office, they can work in the office. People want to work remotely, they can do that too. And so it makes sense that, even though we didn't really preview that it was going to, foresee, sorry, I was finding the French word there, like it was going to, that it was going to have that effect, that it was going to increase diversity. It makes sense when you think that, before we're confining ourselves to looking for talent within these tech hubs that tend to be more high cost of living, people who go to certain schools. Now we can get diversity of talent, geographic diversity, ethnic diversity, economic diversity. So diversity on all sorts of different levels, and really tap into all this talent that we hadn't been able to tap into before. And we didn't just, increase these numbers just in our like bread and butter roles, like our engineering roles or like team leads. Like in our leadership level, leadership being a director or higher, women now make up 37% of leadership roles too. And that's the same that they make up overall in the company globally. And that's another goal of ours that we set. It's called 30 and 5 that we set in 2020 to also have 30% of of leadership roles in the US be Black, or 30% be Hispanic. Now we haven't hit those goals like we hit the women's one as quickly, but we're on target to do it. And again, it comes back to remote work. So remote work has really just been a game changer, and that's just been a game changer for all employees.
Wow, that is just absolutely fantastic to hear, David. Very, very cool. All right, my next question here is for Robert. You've got some great opportunities and initiatives for employees, from unlimited professional coaching to being able to work abroad for 90 calendar days per year. Tell us a bit about these opportunities, Robert, and how they affect the professional growth of employees.
Yeah, I'd say Braverly and Inkblot are two, like, basically just online applications that Bench gives you free subscriptions to. So it's just included in like your benefits. Braverly's awesome. It's really like online coaching and mentorship from like skilled professionals. So if you want to, I don't know, like if you want to just learn something about like time management, for example, you can go do like a course on time management through Braverly and get like coached through like a kind of like a random professional that's in a field of like your choice. You can really like select on the different types of people you want to work with. And so that's been really cool. I've done one on that. And then sometimes they just come to Bench and do like different trainings for the whole people team, for example. So that's been really cool as well. And they're really fun. It's kind of just a day like where we have 2 hours out of our day as like a team, and we're doing like a coaching session on like a particular skill that we all wanted to learn. And somebody comes in and kind of runs like a training, right? So everyone at Bench has access to that. And then they also have access to Inkblot. Inkblot is basically like online therapy. So it's like you can book and see like a therapist through that online app, and I highly recommend it. Like I think even I think just normalizing therapy in general is like such a good idea. I think it can help anybody, even if it's not something that is affecting your life in an extremely dramatic way. But I think if you just to have somebody that you can go to and talk to that's impartial and just wants to give you the best advice possible is so helpful. Like I've used it multiple times, and it's been great for me personally. So that's both those things are great because they're just like two easy ways to like boost like engagement across the organization and really just help people grow in like different areas that maybe they're not like super comfortable sharing right away with other colleagues, right? Like if they want to have it a little bit more private and just in their world, then they totally can through those two apps, right? The third one, the other like large benefit that you mentioned was being able to work abroad, right? I think that's been like a huge driver for why I came to Bench. I think coming from like an agency background before, it was very like in office, kind of like 9 to 5, and you had to have like a presence in the office, and that was a big deal for the company. And I think I had just outgrown that a little bit. I wanted to travel a little bit more, work from home, and saw myself eventually like using that benefit more, even as I like start a small family, right? So that's been great for like personal growth, like gaining so much independence, trying to figure out where to travel and how to balance like work and life while like living in a different a country, but it's still life, I guess, kind of similar to Canada too in a way, right? But yeah, just gaining so much confidence there, completely new friend group, learning different things like surfing and challenging myself even more with hiking and things outside of work have really helped me like appreciate the fact that I work for Bench a lot, right? And I think it shows like day to day and like my kind of love for the company.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is for Nicole. I just noticed that you recently opened up the first KPMG Metaverse collaboration hub alongside KPMG US. What does this venture look like in terms of opportunities for job candidates and for employees?
Okay, well, thank you for raising the metaverse topic. This is an exciting topic, and it's exciting for me to be on a team that's currently, and I will say this, dreaming and building in the metaverse. The KPMG Metaverse Collaboration Hub is essentially where communities can come together, connect, engage, and explore growth opportunities across different sectors and industries. So right now we have a KPMG team that has like the deep tech and innovation experience. And what they do then is they provide both strategic and technical support to clients. And so that may depend upon what their needs are, but it's really to help them navigate the metaverse ecosystem. And so that includes metaverse design, using cases of non-fungible tokens. We actually bought one and we put it in our metaverse. And then it's really about crypto assets and community and engagement. And then really looking, okay, so now what about the broader Web3 integrations? And so what this really means is that there's opportunity from ideating on what the potential use case and solutions can be, to opportunities designing a client strategy and roadmap, to helping that client transform an idea into reality by implementing a plan, but then also remembering, like, you have to manage the risks, and that's like the vendors, the crypto assets. So KPMG in Canada's Metaverse Task Force, it's just come together, and it's subject matter knowledge across the firms. So we have an innovation lab that works with our customer experience team that also works with our crypto asset and blockchain centers of excellence. And then their whole goal is to provide an end-to-end metaverse journey. I think it's really important to understand, like, this is in infancy, and you can hear different podcasts talk about, you know, the metaverse isn't as far forward as we thought it was going to be a few years ago. But really, from a talent attraction perspective, again, this just means opportunity for candidates and employees. So the opportunity is going to cross many subject matter expert areas. So it is definitely the tech-focused individual who can do the building of the metaverse. So, you know, examples of that is custom development product development careers, to management consultants that have a specialty in customer experience, people change, to risk management, those people that have cybersecurity backgrounds. And then it's even going to career opportunities for individuals who can run innovation labs. So those are the people that are really good at facilitating conversation and ideating. But together, it's like the builders and the business functions that will use their skills to influence and shape that metaverse. So for me, I look at the metaverse from an HR talent attraction perspective. And what I want to do is see how this can enable me to connect with candidates through a different channel. And so to all of you, what that really means is, if you're interested in the metaverse and if you're interested in taking your skills in that direction, it's looking at companies that are in that stage of building a metaverse and saying, okay, this is my subject matter experts, and I want to take that into this passion area over here. And then you can combine both as you continue to build your career out. So again, it's just taking your passion for a business function into building a product or influencing on how a product's going to get built. That it's exciting times. I would have never had thought like an NFT would exist, and now we've got one at KPMG, and then I've actually gone out and bought some of my own. They're not worth anything, I'll tell you all, though. Willing to trade.
Well, that's just absolutely fascinating, Nicole. And this kind of leads to my next question with David. David, I'm sure you're going to get lots of questions about the metaverse during our audience Q&A. So I'm going to beat everyone to it and ask the question of, what will it be like working in the metaverse?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a really honest answer. I don't know, because we're still building the metaverse, but I can answer that about what we're doing now and what our vision is, and how it will hopefully unfold. So the building blocks of the metaverse are already around us, right? The metaverse is going to be about taking VR and AR and combining the two so that there's an entire ecosystem, so that people are able to interact, have this connectivity, have this interaction, in virtual environments, or to bring the digital into their own environment. That's augmented reality. You take the digital object into your environment. Virtual reality is about you entering, the digital ecosystem, virtual environment. So these elements are already around us. We've got the Oculus Quest headset and Horizon Worlds. which is virtual reality. We also have Horizon Worlds workrooms, so that people can work in the same space with their avatars as if you're sitting around a table. And so it gives you a little more immediacy than you would have over, what we're doing right now. You'd be able to see people's body language. You'd also have people actually writing on a whiteboard right in front of you. And when people move around a table or the conversation changes around the table, you actually hear the voice coming in different directions. And so it's very cool like that. And on the AR side, we have Ray-Ban Stories classes, so that you can be walking around with your glasses and they'll be while you're walking around, for example, instead of having to look at your phone and check the map. So that's where it is right now, right? What's the vision is to have something that's way more immersive and really combine it all. And one of the challenges is sorry, let me back up a sec. It's not like building a computer or like just hardware. It's about building like a new internet. We do want to build like a truly immersive ecosystem environment where everybody can connect. And so one of the challenges there is that when you introduce hardware, there might be like separate systems. Companies have their own systems, and we've said all along that no one company is going to build it. Even though we changed our name to Meta because we are going to be a metaverse company, we're switching from being a social media company to a metaverse company. Your question to Nicole illustrates this point that like no one company is going to like have a monopoly on the metaverse, and so the challenge is to make sure that people are going to be able to interact using different hardware and still meet in the same place. So what's it going to be like working there? So right now, as I say, we have like workrooms and people can work with avatars. In the future, though, it'll be way more granular than that, way better detail, and way more realistic. People will be able to work with holograms. Wow. And that's where we're going right now. That's where like our fundamental research teams are working on that kind of stuff right now. And another way that that'll be way more immersive is also in terms of learning and job training. If people have a dangerous job or a very esoteric job, like they're a surgeon, and they're in a place that doesn't have a surgeon that can teach them to do that type of surgery, they could be practicing with a doctor somewhere else who can be showing them and really be doing it in virtual reality, so that it feels as if they're actually working on a real patient and doing the surgery. And you think of like flight simulations. Like pilots today don't have to fly a plane thousands and thousands of hours to become a pilot. There's already companies that make flight simulation and that's a form of virtual reality. So so similarly, we can have like medical training. We could have training for dangerous jobs like like soldiers, SWAT teams, things like that. People could do live fire exercises without having to put themselves in danger. There's all sorts of possibilities here. And then on the learning side, being able to teach a lesson where you say, hey, kids, let's go and actually go to ancient Rome. Let's actually go hear from like an orator here, or like, from the emperor or something. Go walk down the street, see what it feels like, instead of just sitting in a classroom. That's obviously like a way more intense experience. It's going to be way more interesting for the kids. So there's all sorts of interesting applications there. And I think that kind of covered it.
This is absolutely fascinating. I'm so excited to see, what becomes of the metaverse and how it's getting shaped together. So yeah, this is very, very exciting. And I'm sure you'll get some more questions later on during our Q&A with our audience. So thank you so much for answering my question there, David. And thanks also to Robert and Nicole for answering all of my questions. Next up, now that we've gotten to know our panelists a little bit better, we have our candidate pitch event. So we usually have this, in the middle of our panels every month. So the pitch event is a great way to pitch yourself in 30 seconds to our panelists here. And it's great practice if, you need to brush up on those rusty public speaking skills and get out there and kind of practice a bit. So I'm just going to type the instructions into the chat here. So to nominate yourself, Into the chat, you can type your name, location, and area of expertise. So I've just popped the instructions here into the chat. So the first 3 people who nominate themselves, I'll pick you to give a 30-second spin, a little spiel about yourself to our panelists. And, maybe one of them or myself might give you a follow-up question. So let's see here. Who is feeling brave and courageous today to speak in front of Robert, Nicole, and David? Okay, all you have to do is add your name, your location, and area of expertise here into the chat, and it really is first come, first serve. So while you're thinking about that, all right. Okay, we've got Serby, excellent. Nicole. And Marvin, okay, awesome. So we'll go with first. So Serby, if you want to turn on your camera and unmute yourself, you're welcome to give a 30-second pitch about yourself to our panelists. So we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Hi, I'm actually at office, so I'm sorry if there's background noise coming in.
No worries.
So
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So my name is Subi. I'm a new graduate with a degree in statistics from SFU in Vancouver. And I'm currently looking for opportunities that involve a lot of numbers and analyzing data. It could be even business analysis. Business is different for me, and I want to learn how companies grow and how organizations function using their data and how they solve problems. So that's basically what I want to focus on, like being a new graduate. And yeah, that's all I could introduce myself with 30 seconds.
Well, thank you so much for being the first brave soul to come up and speak, Serby. Maybe one of our guest panelists here have a follow-up question for you. I've got one, but if they've got one ahead of me, I'll let them ask. Any thoughts, David? See you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I have one. Are you more interested on the stats side, like on the pure data science side, or more on the business analyst side?
Since business analysis is kind of like an umbrella to data analysis, I keep both my options open, but I'm more inclined towards data analysis because I've studied core statistics and I've learned machine learning models, and that's something I'm leaning towards more. But if that does not work out, then I also keep the business analysis option open. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking up today. Nice to meet you, Serby. All right. Great. Next up, we've got Nicole. So Nicole, I see you've already got your camera on. If you want to mute yourself and introduce yourself and give us your 30-second pitch, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Nicole. I work in web development. I've come from a career in brewing and distilling, so this is a big career change for me. Very exciting, a very exciting change. I'm looking forward to being part of an industry where there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of change, and I'm looking for a role where I would be supported in that and encouraged in that. Yeah. I can't think of too much else. I'm very nervous. My heart's beating really fast. But yeah, thanks so much for organizing this as well. It's so nice to come along and get introduced more to people in the tech industry.
Fantastic. Well done, Nicole. It definitely takes a lot of bravery to speak up in front of, we've got 26 people here today. So, big pat on the shoulder for you for doing that. Maybe one of our guest speakers here has a follow-up question for you about, your career. Okay. If no one has a question, I'm going to ask you where. Oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I have one. Yeah.
Perfect.
So what interests you in web development? What made you want to make such a big career switch?
Yeah, I guess it is really solely based on the fact that everything is so new and exciting to me and completely different. I think the role that I'd been in, I was quite saturated with everything that I'd done. It's very traditional. It was all very physical, so I kind of wanted to work more with my mind. During my role as well in that job, I started to gear towards more the technical side of the role, and I did like the scientific side of it. So I kind of wanted something that was this similar to that. But always exploring, always expanding. Brewing and distilling is very traditional and it's all kind of stuck in its ways. So I wanted someone like a career that where no one's going to be stuck in their way and everybody's always changing and moving. So this one seemed like, yeah, a good choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Constant growth. It's important.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Nicole, well done. Thank you so much. Great to get to know you a bit more. All right, our last pitch candidate, Marvin. Marvin, I don't see. Oh, there you are. You've got your camera on. Perfect. Let's hear from you, Marvin.
Hi, thanks so much, Chelsea, and thank you all for attending this. I find it very useful. I'm just gonna dive straight into my pitch. My name is Marvin. I pride myself as a problem solver, no matter what jobs I have, especially part-time jobs when I was still in university. My degree is in management information systems. It's a mix of business, comp sci, and information systems. I like to challenge myself, and in my fourth year, I kind of took a risk enrolling in a software development course that was it's sort of infamous for being difficult. But I found that I enjoyed the work and volunteered to take on some of the more challenging stuff. And from then on, I've just become more determined to learn about the discipline and challenging myself by joining, case competitions and winning one, co-hosted by Microsoft, learning different skills, languages such as JavaScript, and also completing different projects.
Fantastic. Well done, Marvin. Great to get to know you a bit more, and good on you for learning JavaScript. I tried and it's very difficult.
It is very tough, actually.
What would be your dream role? Here's
my dream role right now. I don't know if you want me to go into a little bit of my story, but the past year or so has been very challenging for me. I graduated a year ago, and I found out I had ADHD, which I never knew. And now I just wanted to see if I could push my limits and go for the toughest job that I can, do. And for now, I'm actually in the process of interviewing with one of the big companies for a software engineering role. Yeah, so hopefully that works out. But just gotta push yourself, put yourself out there.
Love your mindset and good luck at your interview. That's very exciting. I don't know if maybe one of our panelists has another follow-up question for you on your career.
I'd be happy to chat.
Okay, well, maybe we'll come back to that during our Q&A. So well done, Marvin, Nicole, and Serbi for being our first 3 brave souls to come up and speak and pitch yourselves today. So keep an eye on your email inbox for an email from me inviting you to a 30-minute resume consultation with BC Jobs. So well done. Next up, we'll open up the floor to questions from our audience here. Now, I noticed some questions have already been started here in the chat, and I'm just going to kind of scroll back up here and start with the first question. So I see the first question actually comes from Serbi. Serbi, did you want to come on screen? Oh, she's just left. Okay, maybe we'll come back to Serbi's question in a minute. She might want to ask it herself. All right, Ryan Williams has got a question. Ryan, was your question directed towards any of our speakers or anyone specific? You can feel free to come on screen and ask your question. Oh, you're still on mute. Hello. There we go. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, so it wasn't really directed to anyone in particular, but yeah, I've just noticed as someone that doesn't have a computer science degree but is looking to break into the field, it seems like every job posting is for entry-level roles must have a CS degree and 3 years of experience. And I know it doesn't mean that's like a hard and fast rule, but as someone that doesn't yet have experience and went through the bootcamp pathway, what's the best way to instill confidence that we are very much ready to contribute and someone who's just a good hire? How do we instill that confidence?
Great question, Ryan. And maybe I'll pass you off to Nicole. Maybe Nicole has some thoughts on that for you.
So I find it a little interesting that kind of like that match hasn't happened. And so definitely, like, you don't have to have a computer science degree to get the role. But then I would always say, okay, so what is the role you're applying for? And do you have the exact competencies from the boot camp for that role? So I always tell people, do that double check, like, and make sure it's connected, because sometimes what comes out in a job posting isn't necessarily a clear connection to what's been covered. So I would say, I would encourage you, continue to look and go on LinkedIn and look for some of those career opportunities where you've seen someone that has that same training in that role. Get connected on LinkedIn and try to follow that career path as well.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Hope that answers your question there, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
Just going to circle back up to Serbi's question, because you stepped away from your computer. Serbi, did you want to read your question out loud? And was your question directed towards any of our speakers in particular?
It wasn't specifically directed to anybody, but it's open for discussion to either or. So my question is, what does it take a new graduate in STEM to get their first job? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of STEM graduates require a master's degree to actually be employed in their field. So, I mean, master's is definitely in my future. I know that, but not right away. I'd want experience for myself. But how do you get a job without a master's degree and only undergraduate degree? And obviously I have, or any undergraduate would have, limited work experience. So how is that like possible? And also, are references important in the job hunting process right now? Because obviously times have changed. A lot of people apply for jobs, and I think that those who have references get on top of the list than everybody in the pool. So what do you think about that?
These are really, really great questions. And maybe I'll throw your questions over to Robert. We haven't heard from him in a bit. What are your thoughts on this, Robert?
Yeah, I was going to say, to answer this question, then also to touch base on Ryan's too. Like, I'd say projects and like any, I guess, yeah, like any projects that related to like real life examples, right? If you're outlining them in your resume, and like try to outline them in like an enthusiastic way too. Like, don't just label the name or the title of the project, then have the technologies underneath. Those are great things to have, but like talk about like what business value this brought by completing this project. I think at Bench, that's really important to understand like the why we're actually doing this and what value it's delivering to the customer. And if you're able to like describe that in like a clear and concise way in the resume, we know you're going to be able to do that in the interview as well. And that's definitely something we ask, right? So yeah, talking about that, and then using like any enthusiasm with it too. Like if you're excited, this is your favorite project when you're there, like talking about it in a way that like, I don't know, like got you excited originally for doing it, right? So doing that any way possible. References at Bench, we don't really worry about references till the later in the process. So it wouldn't be something that we use to like select someone from the very first round. So I wouldn't say that's like the biggest thing up front. And then in my past working for ITIQ, references usually were just, again, like at the very end and kind of just like a quick kind of call as well, especially for junior roles. I don't think it was the make or break usually. But yeah, does that answer your question there? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
Perfect. I see we've got a question here from Dan. Dan, are you still here with us? And did you want to come on screen and ask your question? Is your question for one of our speakers, like a specific speaker, or is it just kind of general?
Anyone can respond.
Okay.
I think my question is pretty similar to other persons. Yeah, because it's very difficult as a junior developer, just a new graduate. It's very difficult to get a job, even for the interview these days. So I just wondering how you guys are assessing the resume and cover letter, and how can we stand out our, on resume and cover letter.
Great question, and I'm sure each of our speakers can probably speak something to that. Maybe we'll go with David first and hear his thoughts on how Meta recruits.
So I think it's like Nicole and Robert said. You really want to make sure that that it highlights the skills that are required for that particular role. Take the time to read over your CV and make sure that it is relevant to the job you're applying for. You might have something that's in the job description, and it might not even be on your CV. You might maybe like it's not quite highlighted enough. So you want to make sure that that's really clear how you're a fit. And then, if you're getting to the screen stage, you're getting to like a phone interview stage, you want to show that you have like an interest, particularly with that company. We don't want to have a sense that we're just like hiring anybody, right? No recruiter wants to kind of feel like that. And you probably don't want to feel like that anyway. You don't want to feel like a number either, right? So it goes both ways, right? You want to show that you're really interested in the company's mission and you understand what they're working on, and have some good questions about that kind of stuff. Also, I just want to touch on the point about references, just to agree with what Robert said. I've never seen like references get someone to the top of the pile. That's not how it works. Every application is seen by live eyes. So first of all, like there's that kind of myth that like some people just get like screened out automatically. That doesn't happen. Everybody gets seen by live eyes, and the only place where a reference would really matter, for me, referrals really only matter if that's what we consider referral. And so they can speak to your work experience and how you are as a teammate. And then it would only come in at the end where it might sort of tip the balance. Like if it's sort of on the borderline, we're not sure if this is like a solid hire, that would tip it in your favor. But it's not something that would overrule if the coding wasn't strong enough. And it's definitely wouldn't be something that would get you an interview if it was obvious just on paper that you want to match. So I hope that that answers some of the questions there.
Awesome. And I see, Nicole, you've got some thoughts to add. Perfect.
Yeah, I just think it was worded really well, what David just said. And I think it's really important that to prepare your cover letter and resume, it's preparing for an assignment at school. You need to do your research, and then a resume would not work for all companies. You have to cater your resume for the job that you've applied for. So like the mass resume sending out just doesn't work. And so that would be number one. And then when you get to the interview stage, again, it's like preparing for a project at school. You need to sit down, prepare. You need to ensure that you've been onto the website, you've done research on LinkedIn, and you've looked at the career paths of individuals. And that way you come in and you've got the fulsome discussion that you're ready to share your competencies and that you know what you've applied for, and you can share like your past successes or a project that you've worked on that can prove that you're going to be successful in this role as well. So I think that showing that and that passion, and it then comes down to, it's not going to be references that make it or break it. It's really going to be that recruiter interview, the hiring manager interview, and ensuring that the competencies align.
And Robert, did you have anything to add on to Dan's question here?
Yeah, I'd say one thing that usually works for me too, like for a junior developer position that I had posted recently, we had like 500 applicants in like a week and a half or something, right? So I'd say I interviewed someone because they messaged me directly on LinkedIn, and they really just said, just trying to pull it up right now too. They basically just said, yeah, I've applied to this position. It's been, Bench as a company has been on my radar for years. I was really happy when I saw that position open up, and I applied right away. A lot of Bench's values really resonate with me. I've read through the Bench's technology principle and the culture guide. And then they mentioned like the keeping it human value is like what they're looking for in their next company. And then they just said, appreciate your time and like reading this message and look forward to hearing from you. And then I like, as soon as I read that, then I found their name and just went to their application right away and did really like their application, and then ended up interviewing them. So could be a good way to do that, like apply and then maybe find someone. Sometimes it can be tough depending on the company to find, like Bench, there was really only like 2 or 3 options for them to message. And they got lucky, I guess, because I was the one looking at the application too. But yeah, to have a message like that and, do a little bit of extra research and send something like that probably takes like half an hour, but it could make a big difference.
Excellent. Great tip. And great to hear about your candidate and how they got an interview in the end. Perfect. All right. Great question, Dan. Thank you. Next up, I see Nicole has got a couple of questions directed for different speakers. Nicole, are you still here? And did you want to ask your questions for Robert and for Nicole?
I guess, Robert, you just kind of answered that question there just now about how to stand out. But other than doing that, like, what makes someone's GitHub stand out? Do you go through and look through whether they're doing tests, or, are they more front end or back end? Like, what do you look at there?
Yeah, I'd say, we would go through a GitHub, right, and kind of determine basically like if they're more front end leaning or more back end leaning, and then kind of more their preferences as well, and kind of see if that lines up with what they're saying in the resume. But I'd say the biggest piece, having a LinkedIn profile that's filled out as well and kind of gives some more details on top of your resume definitely helps too. Like I'd say whenever I look through a resume that I liked, I'll pop open the LinkedIn profile as well, kind of compare and contrast and see if there's any like new info. So use LinkedIn almost as like an extension. Like you don't want to jam everything into a resume. So maybe have like more in depth, like links to the projects that you've worked on or in your portfolio if you're a designer on your LinkedIn for sure. To kind of give more and more info. That's one thing. Projects are big for me for any junior position. I'd say that's the biggest thing. Like if someone's really good at describing, like, again, like what the business value was behind the project, why they're excited about it, what challenges they overcame during the project in like a interesting and like clear and concise way, right? I think that's big for me. That really like makes me want to meet the person and learn more about it.
Awesome. And Nicole, you also had a question for Nicole from KPMG.
Yeah.
Nicole and Nicole.
Yeah, I guess with such a big company, kind of what sort of things are there? You spoke about support and junior roles, but is there direct mentoring or and is there supported study? Like, oh, I want to go and do this. Okay, we will support you. Here's time, here's money, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have well-defined training programs for each of the roles, but remembering that's going to be based on the specific role that you're in. We also have, we call it degreed, so a program where you can go and you can actually curate your own courses to build on top of that. But what you'll also find is there's programs like we have a joint partnership with SFU Digital Academy. And so if we have an individual that wants to build on that skill set, then they can apply for that program and participate in that as well. So there's that formulated learning program. And then on top of that, you have a individual that's your performance manager. So you get the daily feedback and working on a project, and you're going to have someone take a look at it within a couple of hours, give you some feedback. So it's going to be very ad hoc throughout the day. Then you're going to have engagement reviews as well as mid-year and final year. So it's that kind of like that continual feedback. So you actually feel like you're being partnered as you're developing going forward. And really, it's up to you and anyone, like, how much do I want to learn? And you can put more in on a regular basis, or you can take a step back for a little bit and say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to learn for the next few months. I'm going to focus on work and some surfing in Hawaii. So it's really up to you to build that path that you want on the learning front, but there's more out there and than possibly one person could do.
Awesome. All right, our next question is from Chisomo. Chisomo, did you want to ask your controversial question to our panelists?
For sure. I know that I really phrase it in a way that's like fully in jest, but in all honesty, how important are cover letters? I know that I have written mine, blood, sweat, and tears, laid down my entire life story in it in a way that's like in like point form. But I've managed to do that and it's great, but I just want to know how important is it? And also, is it ever used as a writing sample? Because I'm mostly working in junior consulting, and I know that writing is a very important aspect of this. But I wonder, I think particularly for Nicole, would this be used as a sample for your for writing, or like how important is the cover letter?
Yeah, so we do ask for a cover letter for not all of our roles, but specific roles. And we've asked for it because we are reading it. So I can guarantee you it is being read, and it is looking for definitely writing skills, but also it's a way for us to understand what have you done more to understand what you've applied for. So, as Robert talked about the bench values, if you're applying for a KPMG, making sure you're talking about the KPMG values, not the bench values, number one. So it's that attention to detail, it's the writing skills, and it's sharing that just like, what is it that makes you the right person for this role? What project have you done? What case competition have you won? Like it's bringing in that. And then at the end, it's really that summary, like, this is why I'm the right person for this role. We will then go to the resumes and evaluate all the competencies in the job posting against the resume, but it's that fulsome package that's going to help take it to that next stage of the recruiting process.
Awesome. Okay, hopefully that answers your controversial question there, Chisomo. Okay, next up, we've got a question from Shauna on behalf of ISS of BC. Go ahead, Shauna.
Thank you very much for having me today. This has been really informative, and the employers have really aligned with many things that I'm coaching and teaching to our clients at ISS of BC. My question is really about what's the market in the next 6 to 12 months? I'm reading a lot and hearing like little bits and pieces, but I'm just wondering from your perspective, from your employers, is hiring status quo? Is it going to increase? Are you going to hire less? I'm kind of looking, what's the market from your perspective doing?
All right, maybe we'll get an answer from each of our panelists here. I'll let Nicole go first because you unmuted yourself.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I love economics, and I just go back to our basic supply and demand. So if we look at Canada right now, we have more people leaving the workforce each year than are entering the workforce. And we have a mismatch of skills. What we have demand for skills versus supply, there's a mismatch there. And we have record unemployment rate. So a lot of what we read is we have a skill shortage for the next 10 years. The immigration will not close that gap. But what that's telling us is that immigration, newcomers to Canada, are a significant talent pool to help with that. So and I was going to say, Robert, David, and I have never been busier than we have in the last 2 years in the talent attraction front. I would say that we're all seeing that hyper growth has started to plateau. But in saying that, like, we still have a lot of job opportunities open. And so I'm not expecting crazy growth. I just, one company's hiring, another company is doing layoffs. So it's really, the hyper growth isn't there. We've definitely plateaued. And then is it going to trend like that for the next few months? I'll let Robert and David answer that part of the question.
Maybe, David, you can share your thoughts next.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it's weird out there right now. Today, what Hootsuite, announced layoffs, and earlier this week, or was it late last week? I think it was an article that's basically that announced layoffs. It seems like every day you're hearing about layoffs in the Canadian tech sector, or just in tech in general. So and the economy just in general is weird right now, right? It's really hard to get a read on what's going on right now. We saw like after a very initial, like the shortest recession in U.S. history, right at the start of the pandemic, you saw the tech just go like, right, and it just went through the roof, and it was continuing like that to the end of 21. So is what's going on right now, is it just a correction similar to like the housing market, or is it going to be like and hopefully we're just seeing a correction, right? We're still hiring lots of people this year at Meta, and we also hired more people in the first half of this year than we did in 2020 or in 2021. Of course, we didn't hire many people in 2020, but we did, as I mentioned before, in March 21, we switched to remote hiring, and that's when we really started to ramp up the hiring. So the first half of this year, we hired a lot of people, and we're still planning on hiring 6,000 engineers the rest of the year. Yeah, and that's going to be mostly in machine learning and data science areas. So we are hiring a lot of people. Also, I should say also on infra teams as well, on our infrastructure teams, product engineers as well, and infrastructure engineers. So we are hiring a lot of people. Despite the bad news and the uncertainty overall with the economy and with tech, like Nicole said, keep in mind there's a lot of people coming off the market. It's definitely still an employee's market. We're super busy. We've got lots of jobs open. There's still lots of jobs open in tech and in every other sector. So it's a bit of a weird time right now. It's hard to say where it's going to go in the next month, never mind 6 months or like in a year. But things are looking good. Stay optimistic, and things will work out.
Awesome. And maybe Robert, you want to share a little bit about Bench's hiring needs in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, we're kind of hiring steadily based on our revenue growth. So I think we're hiring like at a certain percentage of that. So we have like a 4 or 5 roles open right now in engineering, and that's continuing. I'd say like on a monthly basis, on like a quarterly basis, we're continuing at that like kind of rate. But yeah, there's definitely like David mentioned, there's been a ton of layoffs recently in Vancouver and across Canada and within tech, right? So I think some things are definitely starting to slow down there, right? But I think it could just be temporary over the next few months. But I know tech always manages to come back, and then in 6 months we want to hire a few hundred different roles, and things bounce back pretty quickly, right? So if we are going through a low, I think it will spike back in a few months, right?
Oh, great. Well, hopefully that answers your question there, Shauna. Okay. I see one more question here in the chat, and this one's for David from Vita. But before I get started on that one, if anyone has any other questions, feel free. You can raise your hand. And for those of you who don't know how to raise your hand, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little smiling face that says reactions, and if you click on that, it'll have that raised hand bar. Perfect. Okay, I'll come back to you, Ryan, in just a second. Vinita, are you still with us, and would you like to ask your question to David?
Hi, Chelsea. Thank you so much. Yeah. Hi, everyone. David, I did have a question for you. I saw that Meta's RPM applications are out, and they're due this week, I think. But I wanted to ask you if MBA students from Canada are eligible to apply to that?
Sorry, which kind of students?
They like MBA students from Canada are eligible to apply for that, the rotational program, product manager program.
Okay, that's honestly a bit outside my wheelhouse, but if it's open, you can have after on LinkedIn, and I'll have a more complete answer for that, because I'm not too sure about roles that we have for MBA candidates.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Sorry.
No problem.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. And I'll follow up with you with that.
Thank you. Can I reach out to you separately, and if it's possible for you to put me in touch with someone who's probably handling those programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much, David. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you. All right, we've got a question from Ryan. Go for it.
Yeah, so this one's for Robert. When you were talking about making your project stand out me. You were saying demonstrates like business value. And in terms of like personal projects that you haven't like done professionally, I'm wondering if you like have an example of what you mean by that, or like bullet points that you'd look for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's one candidate that was building like kind of like a pet project, right? Recently that I interviewed. And it was for basically like helping organize like roommates like tasks, almost like in a house with like 5 people. Some people take out the garbage, some people take out like do the dishes and things like that. And they just like clearly painted the need for that particular project in the market, right? So they said like, I've like in their project section, it talked about how this is like a clear problem with like X amount of like Canadians or something, like painted kind of that like this how many people are renting a house with multiple people, and then said that a common like fight between like roommates was that of who's doing the tasks and when, right? So their application basically helped like organize all those different tasks. And that's, I don't know, I just read that and I was like, seems really cool. Seems like kind of like a interesting project. They were obviously passionate about it, and then they kind of created like a little bit of market for it, and then said like why this would be helpful, right? And then they did that in like 2 or 3 lines, right? And then while like describing the product, right? And I thought that was awesome, right? So that was kind of one thing that like stood out for me.
Yeah, thanks. So it's like just putting your problem solving to like real world practical uses and like demonstrating that.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then just kind of clearly painting on like why they did it too, because they said like X amount of roommates like fight about this every year or something, and they said like kind of created a little bit of a story to it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that just like I read that and I kind of was like, yeah, I've been in that situation. It's tough, right? So I could see that product like being useful, right?
Yeah, thank you very much for that example.
Sweet.
Thanks, Brian. All right, do we have any last questions for our speakers today before we start to wrap up? Maybe we'll take one or two more questions. Okay, well, if we're all questioned out, maybe we'll start to wrap up for today. Maybe first off, thanks for asking all these wonderful questions. It was great to hear all these answers from David, Nicole, and Robert. And maybe we'll get some last remarks or words of advice from our panelists first before we begin to close today. So maybe I'll go over to David. If you have any last remarks, words of advice, tips, tricks of the trade, some jokes, I'll hand it over to you.
So the running theme here is how to get your foot in the door, how to make sure that your LinkedIn and your CV is pertinent. I agree with Robert's answer earlier, by the way, about LinkedIn and using that to actually expand on your CV. Remember, you've got more space to play with. You actually see a lot of LinkedIn profiles that are shorter than CV. But remember, there's no maximum length for a LinkedIn profile. You can list projects, you can list volunteer. There's all sorts of different sections that people don't actually use. So you can take advantage of that. And as far as a cover letter, think of that as like your bio. Bio is like your chance to introduce yourself. It's not going to be as specific as the cover letter, but in a general way. So I agree with Robert's advice there. Just want to expand on that. I would also say the other thing too, be prepared for your interview. Think of the common questions, common behavioral interview questions, and use the STAR method, or actually the STAR method, I call it, because it's like situation, task, action, result. I cut the task out because task and situation are the same thing. You want to keep your answer brief. It's just the STAR method. And the last thing is use what we give you too. Meta has lots and lots of tools that we give people to prepare. People who are going to a coding interview, we have what's called IQA sessions. And that's where we do live mock interviews. And people can also ask via chat the interviewers questions. So it's insight into exactly what they're expecting during the interview and how you want to answer the things during your live coding interview. And if you go to a full loop, then you'll have like a half-hour prep call with a recruiter. And you can also request things like to talk to an employee directly, what we call opportunity chat. You can also like have an actual mock coding interview. You could attend an IQA, but still want to do like an actual one-on-one mock coding interview, like 15, 20-minute interview. And that's also offered. So there's lots of tools, lots of videos as well, things that you can do on your own time to prepare. So take the maximum advantage of that. Really, really take it. It is hard to get into Meta. You know, it does take a lot of hours of prep, but there's a lot of like stuff that we give you that's disposable. Sorry, I think I'm trying to find words again today. That's like just funny, but you know, that are available for you to you know, to help you prepare. And so really, yeah, take advantage of that. Everything that the company gives you. That's what I think. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Okay, Nicole, I'll hand it over to you if you have any words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience today, any tips, tricks of the trade, etc.
Sure. So I won't repeat what David said, and what I'll go into the fact that I really think it's important to expand your network. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is look for forums on LinkedIn with respect to like women in tech, for example. And join those forums, go to those live sessions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Like go out there and be uncomfortable, allow yourself to do that. And people are really kind, and people will want to help you find that career opportunity that you're looking for. So again, go out, expand your network, and feel free to ask people for help. I would just say, do your work before you go in to ask for help. Like have your resume ready, have your questions ready, and know what the type of questions that you want to ask that individual. That people are here to help you, and we live in a really kind world. So enjoy it, and it is a candidate market, so stay optimistic.
Love it. Thank you, Nicole. All right, Robert, I'll hand it over to you if you have any last, remarks or thoughts you want to share with everybody.
Yeah, I'd say one thing we didn't talk about was like job application questions. And I really do use this a lot to narrow down candidates. Like we'll put specific questions in about, again, kind of like what you're, most passionate, or what's your favorite project that you've worked on in engineering before, or tell me like what's the most innovative product that you've developed before. And when people really do take the time to like honestly answer that and not just kind of skim through it, like it does make a big difference for when I'm narrowing down candidates. That, and then like we said before, the LinkedIn piece too. If people have like a lot of different links to projects or things on their LinkedIn, or any other courses they've taken and things like that, that's always like a big driver to me, right? And like if you don't have LinkedIn at all, I always kind of think that's like somewhat of a red flag. I don't know, like if a little bit there's no time put into it at all, then I'm like a little bit weary, but not in the biggest way, but I definitely notice it definitely helps a lot. It's just more clear and concise, right? So that's my thing. I'd say take the time to fill out the job application questions and really put some effort into them, and then make sure LinkedIn's looking great.
Great last tips. I couldn't agree more, Robert. LinkedIn is a pretty big one there. All right. Well, David, Nicole, and Robert, thank you so much for, taking the time to join us on the panel today. It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you to our job candidates who also, found the time to come and join us today and to hear our little chat. If anyone is looking for work or new opportunities, please check out Bench, KPMG, and Meta's hiring pages. There might also be some links in the chat here, so feel free to check out the chat. I think I saw some links in there. Also, keep your eyes out for details on our September 20th panel with speakers from Best Buy Canada and BC Transit. You can check them out at bcjobs.ca/events to register. Lastly, you can always shoot me an email with any questions to events@bcjobs.ca. So that's me. You can always reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to answer and connect with you. And thank you again for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Okay, and good luck everyone with your job hunt.
Thank you.
All right, have a wonderful week.